guys, Sifu Nico here. I got William here. He's gonna tell you guys about himself. I'm excited about this one. William, let me know who you are and all that good jazz and what you do.
All right, yeah. I'm William Miller, and I'm a Chin style Tai Chi Chuan practitioner, and I've been practicing in a Chin Chuan Zong lineage for many years. I've been training in quite a few different martial arts previous to that. I started as a youth with actually in Kronk boxing. I had a encounter. I was going to a gym to train and met some trainers from Kronk, and they started showing me, basic boxing. And for those who may not know, in Detroit, Michigan, and Kronk is a team that's known internationally. Tommy Hearns, a lot of great boxers have come out of Kronk. So they're a well-known gym. Emmanuel Stewart was the primary coach of that gym, and he's taught just an amazing amount of world champions. Of course, I wasn't one of his world champions, and that wasn't my story. I was a young guy at a gym, and that gym was full of sharks. So as coming in there around 13 years of age, I trained with those guys, but I realized quickly that those were kids who were looking to have a career in competitive boxing, and it's a different world. If you've never anybody's ever been in a real true hardcore boxing gym, you got to work your way to get attention of the head trainers. But for me, it was a great fundamental understanding of combat sports, and then the discipline that takes in pugilism, and really it set a foundation for me really understanding what it takes to really be successful, and the kind of dedication that people put into being successful in any art. And from there, I always had a love of martial arts in general. And I studied Tang Soo Do, and eventually got into Chinese boxing arts, Northern Shaolin, Long Fist, and Hung Gar. And I continued my journey. And then eventually I got introduced to Tai Chi, and with some really good teachers who could show me both some of the martial concepts as well as the wellness concepts. And it really opened my eyes to seeing Tai Chi as a martial art as opposed to just a wellness practice. Doing Chinese Kung Fu, I saw quite often Tai Chi, but I didn't really understand the fullness of the art. I just saw it as a form of Chinese exercise at that point, until I really got those teachers. And that really opened my eyes and sparked my interest in really focusing in on that art. And then and at the same time, there were, as Tai Chi was growing, Chin style started becoming more prevalent, because there was mostly Yang style instructors and teachers. And so then I got a chance to really see Chin style. And there's a teacher in the lineage that I came up in, is Chin Chuan Zong. He's one of the older lineages that left out of Chin village and went to Xi'an. So his lineage is older than some of the teachers like Chen Chen Lei, Chen Xiao Wang, Wang Xian. These are all well-known Chin style teachers. And Uncle Chin, as many people call him, when he came to the US, he was an older generation, and he was pivotal in really understanding the wellness component of it as well as the boxing component. And he really had that well put together in how he introduced it. And from there, I just fell in love with Tai Chi in general, and Chin specifically, and went full throttle into Chin style. And that's
So how
20 more years ago or something like that.
So you said about 20 years you've been doing Tai Chi then?
Oh yeah, definitely that. Yeah, okay. Quite a long time.
And see, it's nice that you started in boxing, because now you can kind of really delve into that martial aspect of Tai Chi to weed out any of the issues, that may come from that potential superficial martial aspect of the art, right? Did you find yourself being able to cut through some of the stuff and say, well, I understand it from an external point of view, and maybe this won't.
I think that's definitely helped me.
Yeah.
But I think that there's so much you have to cut through. First you got to understand the system. So it wasn't like I could look at Tai Chi and just like, oh, okay, well, this is that and this is this. No, I had to really put my time. So I didn't start from that framework at all. I started from the framework that I really had to humble myself and really learn Tai Chi and put the time and energy and everything. And then really investigate everything that went into all the inner principles of it, And later, I came to the point that I could see a lot of parallels and it could help me see certain things. But no, I think in the beginning, I had to just really learn the art and really ground myself in art. I didn't even approach it with that, like that concept at the time. That and so maybe later on, now looking back, I can see some things that have helped me understand how to train in that format, you know, how to put some of the elements of, so like a Tai Chi person who hasn't had surge experience, they don't know maybe how strikes flow. So they don't have the concept. So then when they're looking at something, they think that this technique should be able to handle a jab or a cross or a 3-punch combination like this. And later on, yeah, I can see how my understanding kind of helped evolve my practice. But in the beginning, no, I didn't have that approach. I took plenty of side routes along the way that where I was thinking that Tai Chi would do this, and somehow that whole my boxing experience really, it wasn't like I was alerted right away that there was some fundamental missing pieces of training. I just thought maybe this would just work like that. And I quickly realized that, yeah, no. And then when I boxed and I just let my hands go, I realized even some of my teachers, and you know, my Sifus who didn't have that fundamental, they had to take a moment to sit back and say, okay, we got to look at this thing a little bit differently. But I was really thankful that one of my primary Sifus here, Frank Roper, who was also in the same lineage, and he was one of the kind of people that really helped Chen Chuanzong lay his foundation in the U.S. He was one of the early people who really studied with him and like hosted him here and everything like that. He also was a guy who was who would spar and had a more open mind. So that helped me a lot. You know, man, I've had teachers who, no, their approach was very unrealistic. And then I've had him who kind of was able to bridge some of the gap and was allowed me to be who I was and bring myself to the art as well as bring the art to me.
So I noticed in the beginning of a lot of people's journey with Tai Chi that have started with an external art or something like that, there's this mystical searching that we are, you know, there's this mystical thing about Tai Chi where you can't push this guy over, or you have this chi energy. Did you fall into that, which is good because it's very magical art, but did you have that perception when you got into the art? Man, there's something mystical about this. There's something very big about this.
Yeah, I still feel that way, you know. So I mean, that's why I continue my journey. I definitely don't think I came to the thought that it was a mystical in the sense that it was like I just could stand and cultivate energy and all of a sudden emit force. You know, no, I didn't have that approach. But I also did have the appreciation that that the internal mind and focusing the mind, certainly becoming aware and sensitivity, I felt like that was something powerful, and that it was something that a lot of arts didn't discuss in the beginning. So my thing is that Tai Chi is like starting with a PhD or a high level degree, where the language and the things that you're trying to develop, many other arts come to the same realizations, but those are the people who practice those arts for many, many years. So you look at a top level wrestler, top level, any other art maybe, that is, they have sensitivity, they have awareness. They don't call it Tenjing, but they understand how to relax and how to listen. They've come to those realizations, I think, through a lot of work and effort, where Tai Chi starts from the very beginning, introducing these concepts. And so somebody who doesn't have any perspective of combat, those things may seem really, you know, like, wow, that's just like something I can't fathom, and it seems very mystical. But when you got another guy who's been wrestling for 20 years, he understands how to listen and how to feel, and he can sense when his opponent is doing things. He knows how to give a little bit of force and how to let go, and a lot of got to apply force and misdirect him. That's not like something that's exclusive to Tai Chi, but I think in the beginning, when you're getting these profound concepts and you don't have a really foundation, then everything seems very mystical and like just, you know. But no, I never came from the perspective that, you know, and maybe that's because of my roots in other arts.
I think so, yeah.
You know,
I would imagine.
I think also my personality is such that I'm a person who looks at things from a few different angles, and I don't just jump in and say, oh, it's just this. That's just not my approach to my life in general. So
I could say that with certainty from your posts and reaction.
Yeah. That's not my approach to anything. So even with Tai Chi, it's the same thing. I looked at it from a lot of different perspectives and was just very open-minded. But I still embrace, you know, the idea of chi and energy. But it within a sense of reality, though.
Right. And I appreciate your authenticity when it comes to your reactions and your videos and your posts and things like that. I've browsed the web, you know, I've seen a lot of people out there, and your name is one of the names that come up often, and someone that I would like to exchange, I would like to touch hands with and do push hands and work with, because I don't often see someone invest so deeply in their root as you do. In your forms and your movements, or in your dantian, your circles. I see that through your video, which I haven't seen in a long time in a lot of other people's videos. And that's not a reach for flattery. That's just honesty and what I see. And so what does that come from? Oh, sorry, something popped up on my screen. Sorry. Does that come from your delving into that chin style? You know, because you really have low stances and you really have nice fluent movements, or does that come from just you testing your art and trying to take it to that next level?
I mean, it definitely comes from chin style in terms of Chan Su Jin is one of the primary components in the twining and everything, and this whole understanding of interconnected force out from the center of the body, the legs, out to the limbs, to the extremities. So yeah, I mean, that's fundamental to the art. Now, a lot of people have more, you know, different levels of understanding of that, and I think in my, you know, I put a lot of time and energy into that. You know, I spent
it
years.
shows. It shows. Okay, we're good. I don't know what happened. Sorry about that. It literally just went out and then came back. It might be because I was downloading another Zoom meeting. So
Multitasking, huh?
multitasking, man. So back into, let's step back, and then so it, like I was saying, it seems like you invest a lot into your root, a lot into your circles, and I was saying, where does that come from? So that, you know, you're letting me know from chin style, but also you really put a lot of time into this art, it seems like. So what is the stuff that you focus on fundamentally, or maybe there's more than that, but what are the fundamental stuffs that you really think matter the most to take you to that level to where you're exploring more?
You know, that's such a tough question because there's so many layers. You know, I mean, you have to start someplace, and then, you know, I mean, and it's probably where most people in many different styles of Tai Chi and even in Chin have focused on. I think that, so, you know, even in Chin Tai Chi, there's different schools or different lineages who focus on different components, and who may have more flowery movements, who have different rules and restrictions about knee and hip movement. And in the particular school that I train in, the lineage I train in, is very specific. We don't have what we consider floating knees, or you know, knees that are like all over the place. We have very, you know, clear ideas about the knee, ankle, hip relationship. And so there's a lot of arts in Tai Chi and in Chin style, even different lineages that are more flamboyant in their expression of this. They're trying to share the concept of Chan Su Jin in a very visible way. And so I have worked, there's times in my training I was a lot more expressive, and I allowed myself to break rules because I watched videos and saw what other people were doing. And then over time, I realized why my lineage had those rules, why that was so important. So I put a lot of time into really maintaining the structure in a way that's very efficient and functional to usage, not just for visual presentation. So that's one of the things, really following the rules of the lineage. And when I say that, really, it's just the rules of anatomy. I mean, the lineage is where it was taught, but if anyone who understands how the knees work with the hips and the feet, there's certain things that when you're dealing with an opponent, your knees are not going to do. So when you see people on their knees are swimming all over the place and they have those swimming knees, when you ever watch them with another opponent, their knees don't swim because they have to maintain a connection between the ground and the push. If your knees are getting out of alignment between those two spaces, you can't issue force. You can't receive force. You can't neutralize force. So through my training and dealing with real engagements with people, whether I went and invested time with, hanging out with wrestlers and working with them and trying to maintain my background in my art as I approached dealing with them. And I just realized that, yeah, these rules are there because these are biomechanical rules. And if you don't really have a format to test your art, then you can be have a lot of ideas in your mind about how movement should be that you won't be to bring that to play when you're dealing with a person. So you'll have these two different worlds. You have your world of performance, and then you'll have your world of action. And so I decided that the world of action was going to reflect everything I did in my training, that I wasn't going to allow the enjoyment of performance to override that, because there's sometimes you just want it's your body and you want to flow and you want to move and it's very graceful. But in my idea about things, you can't allow that to become primary because then it really comes out as a deficiency when you work with other people in real time. So that's kind of one thing. I've just really stayed focused in the fundamentals, but there's so much. I mean, I've built, when you talk about these words like Dantian and Chan Soo Jin, people who may not have a true understanding of it, like you said earlier, those things become mystical, like the Dantian. But if you like in the world of fitness, you hear everybody talking about the core. So the question is, how different is the core than the Dantian? Are they related? Some people may argue, no, the Dantian is a field of elixir that is 2.5 or a half inch in beyond the navel, or whatever the measurement is that people tell you where the Dantian will be inside your body.
Yeah, that's correct.
But the fact of the matter is that when I'm using my body, I have to use my whole core to neutralize, to absorb. So however one would look at it, the experience of it is not that space that's inside behind the navel at a half. Right. It's the whole trunk of the body and its relationship to the lower. And so I've just kept that kind of like I never allowed myself to get caught up on esoterics, but really just focus on the mechanics. And there may be a merging of those two at some point energetically, but that's kind of been my route. I mean, it'd be kind of difficult to go into so much about like the different things I've trained over the years. I mean, because I started in one place and then I evolved. And I'm still in the evolutionary process of my practice.
I think that's where I'm seeing, that's what I'm seeing then is the evolution, as opposed to you being stagnant and being content. I think that's why I see in your videos and your movements and even in what you say and respond to, you have this open mind to grow. And I would love to see more of that in this art, but I do think that's rooted from your external arts, because it, like you said previously, it kind of cuts through the bullshit. I'm kind of summarizing your words, but
yeah, I get what you're saying.
How they will spend all that time and end at the PhD when we start at the PhD, and we actually have to go back to the kindergarten.
Yeah, our journey's backwards. That's a funny thing about Tai Chi people, is that sometimes, but we draw an audience that I think is very well educated.
Right.
Many Tai Chi people are people who are interested in philosophy and thinking and are very introspective about things. And that draws in a certain audience. And that same audience may not be people who have been athletes or people who are very physically engaged in part of their life. And they may come to Tai Chi at a particular point in their life where they're older and they're not necessarily interested as being as physical. So I think that's some of that. And I just had a different route. All that could be part of it. But I think it's just that I think that we're also living in a time now that I think we're getting a chance to see what people are really doing with their practice, what really people are about.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people are getting their eyes open and having to confront some of that firsthand, and you can see it coming out of China with all these masters who are out there getting in the ring, and everyone's like, why are you in the ring if you had did you just think because you did form and you had these concepts that you could just apply all of this without any type of functional transition?
I'm glad
you don't have timing, you don't have reactions, just all the basic stuff that other arts focus on. So then we have to go back to focusing on those and then tie that into tinging and listening and sensitivity and redirecting. And that's why I like some of the stuff I share is, I just shared this post recently with George Foreman, just doing things that Tai Chi people talk about, redirecting and using his ground path to stop a forward advance of Joe Frazier, and redirecting and then striking from the side door. And I mean, he's not doing some traditional lineage of Tai Chi, but the principles are found in nature. So anyone who's really explored how interaction takes place between two energies or two forces is going to come up with some type of thing that is reflective of the yin yang dynamic, or just of the fact that when two energies interact, there are ways to move them and manipulate them. And if you get to a high level skill, you're going to realize you want to use the most efficient path. It's like, I can't be stronger than everybody. I can't be bigger than everybody. That's not going to work. And so you're going to look for, how do I make things happen and also maintain integrity in my body,
right?
And also not, overextend myself where I'm exhausted, or that I'm playing in the hand of my opponent because I'm trying to match them with strength or something like that. So
yeah,
I just think that we're in a time where people are coming. And I'm thankful that I kind of was on the curve of that earlier. So I didn't really spend a lot of time without that reality, and then I don't have to try to protect myself from the reality now. And I think that's what has happened, is that some people they don't want to share their art because they have to kind of hide behind all the years of the way they were doing things before. And now right. It's kind of like, well, let's see it. Let's do it. Can you manifest? Can you make it happen? And a lot of people can't.
Yeah, it's very evident. And I think that's the nice way to say this is the years difference between you and I.
Come again? Go ahead, I'm listening to you. I got you. Yes,
right?
The years difference.
Yeah,
the bridge of maturity.
That's nice. That's an easy way to say it, right? I mean, what you're probably 30, 40, right?
Yeah, 1,000. I got you.
So my era, we want to post things, we want to show things, we want to get it out there. That's just kind of what we thrive on. And so I do see a lot of the people posting their forms and posting this and that, and even them explaining fighting and stuff like this, but have never really battle tested it. And that, I think, is great, because now it exposes them to have to respond to someone's reaction. I mean, and the easiest way to say that is like, what's the guy's name? Jake Mace. Okay, I'm sure you've heard that name before.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. So
the name that shouldn't be spoken.
Yeah. We'll bleep that out on the recording.
No, I like Jake Mace though. He's all right, man.
No, I like his energy. I think he's a fun. Yeah. I think he's a fun guy. I think he takes himself seriously, which is funny to me, but because the Tai Chi that he does is not.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, not to go on a spin on Jake Mace.
No, I know.
But I'm gonna just say this about him. Since his departure from his Tai Chi and every other martial art that he's got it all. Whatever martial art there is out there that can sell a video, he's got a routine for it. But other stuff he's done since then, I've kind of enjoyed. So as I've gotten older, I've been like, Jake's okay. He's doing his thing.
He's not bad. But he got it out there to the people, and then had to defend himself. So going back to what we were saying, had to defend himself on that. Which, I mean, he didn't really do much defending, but
he actually, when you say he had to defend himself, like
just like keyboard warriors.
Keyboard, okay, I got it.
Keyboard warriors. The people that say this doesn't work and that doesn't work. But I like when people post stuff that is not going to work, because now you can expose them and then learn from it, and they can learn from it. So that hopefully, right, if they're open-minded enough, so that hopefully they're not spreading misinformation. But like you were saying, in your era, in your generation, you guys had a lot of practice and foundation, and you were able to battle test it and not have to post it or prove a point by posting a video. I respected that a lot more, and that's how I really respect that a lot more, because you're really investing in the understanding of the art rather than seeing all these different people do all these different things. You're inside. You're a philosopher of sorts of your own, right? So I think that's a bit. I think
lost. It's funny you say that, because my generation, when I came up, it was very difficult to see other people's practice. You know what I mean? So you really couldn't see what everybody was doing, and then a lot of teachers, they didn't test their stuff. I mean, so I've trained with plenty of teachers who, no, they didn't test their material. They didn't really test it. I mean, what we're dealing with now is a reflection of that kind of that generation. Right. There were certain ones that did, and I was lucky enough that I had that experience, but I've had teachers who didn't, and they had a lot of talk and And I spent a lot of years with people where I was, I'm not gonna say it was time wasted, but in that component of, combat or fighting or, and I don't even like to use those words like that, combat and all that, because it's confusing. Like when I say I test my art, it's not like I'm out here on a battlefield with weapons and I got a sword. And it's not like that. It's I'm testing the certain components of the art, that's why when I hear people use certain words like combat Tai Chi, it's just like, what does that really mean? You know what I mean? It's like, I try to, so though I test by sparring, I don't want to come across like I'm some guy who's, special forces Tai Chi, and I'm out here and I know everything about combat. No, the reality of fighting is it's ugly and it's not beautiful, and it's not necessarily artistic in the sense of visually stunning. And so what I've done is I've tested my material in ways that are appropriate to my lifestyle.
Right.
And I try to keep it very realistic.
I love that
way, and that's what I do, so, whether I've done push hands on all different levels, whether it be very focused on sensitivity and feeling and just off balancing my partner and not being off balance or being off balance, whatever, to more extreme where we're doing throws and takedowns and using striking involved in that, trying to bring all those components together, and then breaking distance where you're striking at a distance where touch is not your starting place, and trying to bring all those things together. And though I consider that testing the art, I don't want to ever come off like, it's real combat or it's a battlefield art. I think that a lot of people use these terms very loosely because they're ways to market an idea or a concept where people feel like, oh, well, if it's combat Tai Chi, or if it's, people argue the difference between sparring versus self-defense. And there are some definite difference between what happens in a ring and sparring and in defending yourself against someone who's there to try to, really seriously harm you or kill you. Yeah, there's all differences. But the reality is that you have to practice something. Right? You have to practice some timing, some understanding of distance, of managing power, of speed, and hopefully that any incident you might have, whether it be in a ring, and you would train specifically for that, or if it's in a self-defense, you have some fundamental skills that work. And that's what I focused on, developing those fundamental skills. And some of my students have interest in just being able to defend themselves, if something got out of hand. Yeah. And some have an interest in like, how do I take this into a combat, in a sports combat world? How do I compete as an athlete with these principles to make myself better and more efficient? And I have a few who want to try to do as close to what we would consider authentic Tai Chi in a open format. And I think that's what a lot of people get stuck on, is what does authentic Tai Chi look like in these formats? And I play with all of those components. And that's kind of what my background has, maybe give some insight to do. And then how I've kind of evolved into doing that now. I'm glad you're keeping it very realistic for myself and my students.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that though, because I've heard many times that people want to see Tai Chi look a certain way in fighting. They're like, that's not Tai Chi, or this is not Tai Chi, because I think each person has this perception of that soft form, how it should manifest into a fight.
But most people can tell us all they can all point out what all the things that aren't Tai Chi. That's the thing. That's not Tai Chi. I'm like, well, what is Tai Chi? Show me. I'm not from Texas, so what's the show me state?
What's that?
But Missouri. Missouri. So I mean, I'm like, show me. Do it. Bring it. Right. Really, what do you got? It's like, I'm not gonna keep telling you it's not this, it's not that, it's not this, but I can't perform what I believe it to be, and that's what I see a lot of people do. Sit on the sidelines and point out, oh, this is not that, or I've been told because I have gloves on, you can't do Tai Chi with gloves on. And I'm like, well, you think if you're really sparring, you're not going to bare knuckle box 3 or 4 times a week and get your face, it's just not a real, but for someone who's not sparring, they think that way because they've never.
But do you think that that's the crossing from the traditional into, the evolutionary way that you do? The traditional person that views what you do might not even give us, I'll put us in that category, might not even give us the opportunity because they're like, well, they're wearing gloves or they're doing squats or, they're doing.
Yeah, or hitting a heavy bag. I've heard that. You hit a heavy bag. I mean, I've heard all kinds of things. I really don't know. I think that it comes down to, and that's why my retort has always been, well, show me, like all the different, dialogues that you've seen online, I've seen online from people, and you're in a group for quite a while. And I'm like, all right, well, listen, at this point, you've established who you are. You've established that you're a teacher, or you have a practice, or you've been doing it for a long time. How about some videos that can really show us what you're speaking of? And that's when you get silence. That's when it starts to chirp, chirp, chirp.
Right.
And people get sometimes very offended that you would ask for that.
Right.
And then, but in other arts, that would be like understood completely.
Yeah,
Like, no problem. I'll show you what I do because I'm actually doing this. And I think that's just a challenge that I think that people have. And so I don't know if it's because it's traditional or non-traditional. I think there's some traditional stylists who really spar and really go at it, and they find ways to even train, without gloves, and
Right.
and their programs have found a way to accommodate that. I just have found that the use of pads and bags and these things can be done in a way that you can really work your Tai Chi principles. Still, you're not going to do it's a difference between an open palm strike and you can't trap and grab and grasp and control the same way, and chin na, and but those are just parts of a thing. So you're training other things with the gloves on and in a sparring, then you have other ways to train other things. And people just get very closed into these concepts that they use to defend themselves or defend the idea they have.
Right.
And I just think that for the art to really to be explored, you have to kind of let some of that go, and unless you don't desire to learn that. And then if you don't desire, then don't talk about it. You know what I mean? If that's not your thing, and then don't sit on the sidelines and critique everybody else about what they're doing is not Tai Chi if you can't show what you're doing as Tai Chi. I guess that's kind of my basic premise. At some point, show us.
Yeah, show us what we want to see. So what are the building blocks for you? So what would it look like if a beginner were to walk into your class and say they want to train with you? Are you asking them in what aspect, or do you start?
Definitely. That's very important. What do you want? What are you trying to gain? I mean, of course, I'm teaching seniors. I'm teaching, all different audiences. And so, of course, if a senior is coming to me and they have a concern with balance and range of motion, flexibility, and leg strength, and those kind of things, and we're going to start with a different mindset. But actually, interesting, in art, a person who wants to train and compete may start at the same place in terms of structure and alignment and understanding those things, but they would have an additional things that they're doing in their program to help move them in that direction. So it's not so much that the foundational stuff, if they really want to learn Tai Chi, it would be the same. You're going to come and you're going to learn the alignments of the body. You're going to learn how to stand. And then you're going to start with, exercises that work on integration of the body and in movement. And then you're going to, to build into the form. And then we'll start looking at, push hands and Tui Sha, and then building on that. That's kind of course that's, but the thing is, when you have a teacher, the goal, I think, as an instructor, as a coach, is to be able to tweak that for your individual student, like what their goals are, and what their interest is, and how willing they are to work. Like you talked about low stances. I don't require that everybody do the same depth of stance work because of their body may be different, and they may be going, so they may take them a longer period to get there. But if a person wants to come in and really get an experience of like the Gung Fu, then we're going to start there and see what their mind works with, how they mentally respond to that. Are they going to run from it, or are they going to embrace it? That's going to tell me a lot about their character. But I probably wouldn't do that with a person who's looking for more of a wellness practice. I'd build them up, and then we would do some of that as part of a conditioning program, but it wouldn't be so essentially, in a sense, everybody kind of starts at the same place. Basic standing exercises, basic fundamentals of alignment of the posture, awareness of integrated movement, Chen Sujin exercises, working with Laoja, the first form, the old frame form. And then, starting with partner exercises. And then if someone's interested in fighting, we're going to be doing other conditioning that's related to building up the body in the way they would need to be in that kind of element.
I like that. I often see your story on your Facebook where you're working the bag or sparring or striking with several different your students. And are those the individuals that have expressed, I guess, more of a physical, they want to get into the more sporty side, I guess? Yeah,
definitely. I have, so some of those people you see do both a striking component of the course, and then other people are doing just Tai Chi.
Okay.
But the ones you see, most of them are doing both. So
Yeah.
in that group, and so one of my thoughts is this: if you don't know the basics about striking and punching, you even if you're doing Tai Chi, you still got to learn how people would strike you. And what's the most common way someone's going to approach me with a strike? How do you read the body? How do you read the shoulders and know which punch is coming? You know, how do you move your head and feint? I mean, because the reality is that, you know, you can't necessarily catch every punch or neutralize everything with your hands or with touch. You know, so you have to train other skills that have just been proven to be fundamentals in combat sports.
I think basic boxing does that.
Oh yeah, and Muay Thai does that, and you know, and even on the street, if someone throws a punch at me, sometimes I might just at the last minute be able to lower myself, drop my stance a little bit, and the punch can whiz over my head.
Right.
As opposed to I might not have time. My hands might be preoccupied with something. I might be holding something and don't have ability to raise my arm or to parry it. All I can do is slip the punch and move. You know,
is this experience, William?
Yeah, but if you never had that experience, then you might not know that. Yeah, you might be at the grocery store with some bags in your hand,
right?
And had altercation, and next thing you know, you need to move out the way and move your head. You know, and
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that those students you see, they get exposed to everything because I think that all those things are important.
Yeah,
it goes back to what we said at the beginning of this, is that if they have that experience too, they'll have a better appreciation for the mechanics and the applications of Tai Chi from dealing with the reality of fighting, and they'll be appreciated a little better. And so some students are going to go further into that. Some are going to decide, you know, I don't want to invest this much time and energy into reaching this skill set, but they'll still know how to defend themselves, and that's fine too. And then some are going to say, now that I have a better understanding of the striking, I can start to marry this up with my Tai Chi in a way that I feel that I can employ the principles in any format, any situation, you know, no matter if I'm open hand, free hand, gloves on, headgear, or whatever the obstacles are, I can still understand the art and how to apply it.
So have you ever been physically attacked?
Yeah, I've been physically attacked, or I've been in a fight.
Yeah.
I've been in a few fights. Thankfully, they haven't been in the last few years of my life. I've gotten a lot older, a lot more mature. But yeah, growing up in Detroit, I mean, you know, I had plenty of opportunities.
So where are you located right now?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
So Chin Tai Chi Atlanta is my program here, and I also you can find me at Chin Tai Chi Atlanta on Facebook. You can find me at Team Canifist MMA Muay Thai on Instagram and Facebook. So I draw students who are interested in the striking arts and interested in Tai Chi. But because of who I am, and that's why I use the term MMA, because I do believe that I even believe that Tai Chi is a form of a mixed martial art. You know, some people just don't like to hear that, but I think that
I love to hear that. Keep saying
because I mean, at that time period, no martial art artist just was in a vacuum. They learned from other people who were doing other things. They had to counter other things. They had to understand what potential people might be doing who were going to do them harm.
Right.
They had to understand, you know, and so then you start to see what other people. I just think that most martial artists, if they're going to be effective, are going to start to understand what other people are doing and also what's effective. And they may put a particular spin on it and adopt it into a format that matches their philosophy, that doesn't break their principles. But I just don't think that any martial art evolved without the relationship of other previous arts or arts of the same time period. So I look at Tai Chi as of that. But when I use the term, I mean that if I'm using Tai Chi principles, but I may be using some things that come out of other arts.
It's it's very supplementary. It's very
supplementary. I mean, somebody might say, oh, he's doing boxing because he's moving his head. And I just think that's crazy because why wouldn't you move your head? I mean, is that like, that's just, I don't understand how
I always say
it's boxing.
I always say fighting is one of the most simple, complex things ever, because I know that if William is trying to fight me, there's few areas that he's trying to hit. I know that for sure.
Yeah, pretty sure.
He's not going to be punching the air around me. He's going for my face, my gut, my leg, whatever. It's my body you're trying to hit. And so, yeah, it's one of the most simple, complex things because you know what that person wants. They want to harm you. Okay, we understand that. So why would I stay in the place that they see me at? Right. So that's why you need to. That's why developing that, moving your head from the boxing and turning it into a Tai Chi thing. You know, if you need to, where you're kind of moving and rotating and being sharp with it and connecting. That makes more sense to me than ignoring it. So
Yeah, it's funny. Like when you see, I've seen where a boxer, you know, he can take a punch on the chin and roll his head.
right.
And I joke with a friend, says roll back. He's like, let's roll back. I said, well, when the guy hit him, he didn't keep his chin. He realized that he had to roll with the force,
Roll with it.
to roll with it and neutralize some of the power in the punch. I mean,
Yeah.
and you don't see that is the same thing that you've done before in Tai Chi, where you roll back and neutralize someone's push.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so to me, it's like not some big like, oh well, no, it's all
It's not this
all
big.
yeah, you roll back your head, you roll your chin back out the way, so you don't. Get your head wrong.
So going back to Detroit, man, that's a heck of a city, man. You know.
Yeah, it is, man. Growing up in Detroit was interesting. I grew up in Detroit when, when the crack epidemic hit the city.
Yeah, it was big.
And many other communities around. So it was just a lot going on in Detroit, and so yeah.
Is that where your family is from?
Yeah, that's where I grew up. That's where my family is originally from.
Nice.
So yeah, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. I had my fair share of fights, but I mean, listen, and you want to survive, you learn how to stay out of fights. And that's
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like I was around picking fights and looking for fights. Fights came and I dealt with what I had to do. But you learn quickly that everybody's not gonna put their hands up and square up, So you learn that it's better not to find out what they got in their pockets while you think it's about to be a Shaw Brothers kung fu flick.
Right.
That's not what they have in mind.
Exactly.
So no, so I learned quickly that wasn't the path for me. And I've learned how to avoid problems more than get involved in them.
Yeah, I've seen too many times where friends of mine, when I would go out, they'd be like, "Man, you could take him, or you could take him." I'm like, "No need to. You would. What would be the purpose of proving that? There's that instant gratification that they seek." But for me, in my perspective, I don't know if they have a knife. I don't know if they have a gun. I don't know what their previous experiences are.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what Tai Chi should teach you is situational awareness. I think that's a big part of the component is reading the energy of the room, reading the energy of the people around you, and not kind of putting out an aggressive energy if you can when people come at you some kind of way, to be able to, energetically with your demeanor neutralize some of that aggression where it doesn't have to get physical. You know what I mean? That you're not mirroring their behavior in a way that makes them more aggressive. I think that's all part of that's why I love the art, because it takes all those things in consideration. Exactly. I think that's part of the training too. The philosophical side is not just the philosophical side is not void from a physical reality. And another, so the idea is that if I mirror your energy, then we're going to create more of that. But if I can neutralize the energy and kind of soften it, you may decide that, you know what, all right, let's keep it moving. This isn't all of that. And at the end of the day, I walk away, and just say, hey, I avoided a situation and it wasn't all that. And I think that's a big part of Tai Chi. And a lot of my students who are not interested who are in the business world or in a professional environment, we talk about Tai Chi and push hands and Tui Shao from the perspective of how to deal with things that are happening with coworkers or business transactions, negotiations, how to really negate and redirect energy and hold your ground or maintain your structure and your alignment. Exactly. At the same time, not be pushed over. And so that's the beauty of the art. It has so many different ways that you can approach it in layers. And so, and that goes back to the different students I have. I think being a good teacher is about understanding who you're teaching and what they want and what they need and trying to give that to them.
So I love that you said that, because a lot of conversation tends to lead to martial application and fighting in this. But what I'm getting from you and what I love to do myself is invest that aspect of Tai Chi the way it is into the real world, into the emotional state, the mental state, how it applies there, and a way of living, a lifestyle. That Tai Chi should be more than the physical. It should be a spiritual and energetically way of living.
And so, when you are in a business meeting and there is a strong horse that's trying to push you this way, but you feel this way, you can accept the energy and then, give it right back how you want to, but not going force to force with those things, so and there's conflict, right? So what other ways do you apply Tai Chi in your life that may not be physical?
Yeah, I think that I try to, there's so many ways, but I think, if I was to try to point out one of the things that I've kind of evolved into is not even just applying Tai Chi with other people or external events, but just my own inner stuff. You know what I mean? I think we all have inner stuff. We focus on what's going on around us with other people and people giving us pushback and all this other stuff. But sometimes you give yourself stuff. Sometimes you give yourself pushback, and you have to know how to accept yourself. And I think a lot of that is stuff that I draw from in Tai Chi of being able to find inner balance and not allow myself to push myself in one direction too far, or be pulled by some emotion I have in another direction that may not be healthy for me. So yeah, I try to incorporate it in everything I do. I think that's what has kept me in the art. It hasn't been the martial side of it. It hasn't been just the performance of the form and the physical exercise and the flexibility and the improvement of my breathing and posture alignment. All those are things I need daily, but I think it's how all those things also affect the mental state. I think that's just the art itself. Like, it's all integrated. When we talk about connection and body integration, it's not just physical. It's you can't truly, like, if your body is integrated, your mind and your emotions may be more inclined to be integrated. You may still need to do work in those areas, but because of the fact that you're self-aware of your body and you're self-aware of your alignment and you're self-aware of these things, you start to then become more self-aware of other parts of yourself that may be out of alignment.
Right.
And then you can kind of like, take from the practice of the physical and then apply it to another area of your life. And that's kind of what I have been focusing on just in my personal self. Is like, you can have great alignment in your body and you can have a very integrated force and be able to explode from zero movement to a very explosive expression of power. But how does that translate to action in your life or internally? Like, how does that play out? And I think that's everybody's internal own work and their own journey. It's not something that I try to teach students. I think that the practice teaches you that. I think that if you invest enough time in the lifestyle, as you spoke about, and the practice and the discipline, it starts to translate into the inner workings of your mind in a way that's very natural. It doesn't require a lot of force to try to apply it. I think you just start to see when you reach a certain level of achievement in one area, how that achievement in one area should and can naturally influence other areas in your life internally. I think that's why it's important that people spend the time to achieve goals, because like even talking about the fitness world, when you achieve one goal there, it translates to, okay, now I have more confidence that I can commit, I can stay focused, I can reach this goal. And now you've built up a certain level of belief that you can manage these things. And that's what I think my practice has done for me, because I've been able to look back over such a long period and see that I've been committed and I was able to achieve certain goals that people may talk about in philosophically, but I could actually manifest them in my body. In your body. And it gave me a lot of confidence to know that if I can do that with these things and I can really hardwire and ingrain these things into my body, then I can do that in other aspects of myself that may not be physically clear to other people, but that have become very tangible to the inner workings of my mind.
So I love where that's going, because we have to really balance ourselves. A lot of people have 9 to 5s. They have a lot of stuff going on, relationships and all these sorts of things. Well, if you're never really taking care of yourself, you're going to start that slow decline mentally and go into a bad place. And you could be kind of physically okay, but you're still maybe not letting that seep into your life. So where I'm going is, I fell into that hole of, oh, you should not do anything, lift weights and do this and all that, doing Tai Chi. It's not good for your Tai. When I was younger, I did that. I was like, I'm not doing this. This is going to destroy my Tai Chi.
Yeah.
That was wrong. That is
definitely
100%
wrong. But
wrong.
You're not alone in that camp. We all was in that boat at some point.
Yeah,
if you really invest in the art, you're going to come across that same thinking.
110%. So I realized I'm like, wait. If this guy can't even run a mile, you know, this is strange, but okay. So I started to invest in myself where it was like, let me see if I can run a mile. Let me see if I can do 30 push-ups. Let me see if I can.
You got to, and I was looking at your post one day. I was like, yo, Nick has got his 6 in. I tell you, it was 6 miles, and your time was good. I was impressed. I think that's why I started reaching out to you. I was like, oh, I like what you're doing, man. You're putting all the components together and you're really starting to take care of yourself. And that's a big point because I went through that same thing where I felt that, I had certain teachers who were, just adamant against, weight training and strength training. And, they would even, but the funny thing is they would do push-ups or something else. And I say, well, that's a form of resistance training. You know that, right? It does build strength. Yeah, it's not an external weight, but my body still feels resistance if I have to push myself up off the ground.
Up and down, right.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's just not a weight in my hand that I'm laying on my back, pushing up on a bench. Right. There is a certain level of resistance. So, and so I'd have these kind of conversations like, that kind of a little bit contradictory. And then you look at the history of Tai Chi, the people worked on farms. They were agriculturists who worked every day, who handled and lifted and moved and pulled.
Big stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, they were physically fit people just because of the lifestyle. And I think that, and then if people were in the caravan business, protecting goods and traveling and using their martial art, they needed any extra advantage of strength, of speed. If they had to run away from a battle or run to a situation, yeah, you got to be in shape to do those things. And I think those people knew that. I just think that we somehow
drifted away from
creating a narrative, a story, and we departed from a lot of realism that I think the founders of the arts understood. And it wasn't anything they had to talk about because they all probably strength trained. They all lifted up heavy things and moved them around to make sure that they had that advantage if they needed it.
Right. Now, I want to interject because what you just said kind of sparked my interest because they never had a need to extract the physical and this and that because it was already integrated into their lifestyle, and I think now it veers off because we don't have the threat of someone stabbing a sword through my hut and trying to kill me, right? So now it's where I'm more comfortable. I can sit down or I can stand up right here and do Tai Chi and sit back down and watch YouTube. And there's
but I'm not walking 5 miles to go get something and coming back. I mean, it's just the lifestyle people live
or
in a different time.
Or I just walk 5 feet and get something to eat. I don't have to go hunting.
You don't have to go hunting and you don't have to, so I think people were a lot more physical. So that was already built, like you said, into lifestyle. But I even think that people at that time, I mean, just when you look at some of the old texts about Chinese martial art, they did strength training. I mean, they knew they had to pick a guy up and throw him.
And
all kinds of stuff. But if you had to pick somebody up and throw him, yes, you need to have leverage and you need to have the mechanics to do it technically. Right. But any strength you have added to good body mechanics and good posture and movement is going to help you. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to make you disconnected from your integrated body mechanic by having strength. And so, I think that's important. But I even think what you're saying, though, is that you realize at some point in your journey that there was something missing.
Oh,
and that's important. That I think that a lot of people don't want to sometimes admit that Tai Chi isn't a cure-all for everything. It's not going to cure everything. I mean, if you need to have some cardio work, and it's not just doing like in Chin style we have Pao Choi where you can do a very fast explosive form, but you need other things. I think that's important for the whole health of your body. And I think that when you look at some of the masters who've gotten older, you can look that they probably could have aged better, Right. You look at some of these guys now who are out here in their 60s and 70s who have kept doing calisthenics, kept doing strength training, and the way they aged and the vitality they have in their body is great. They may not have some of the things that a Tai Chi person would have in terms of inner awareness, but they still have a lot of good stuff. So my thought is, why limit yourself in any of that and believe that there's some kind of contradiction? There's no
contradiction or restriction. So
there's no need for that.
I've never felt a better form than when after I ran 3 miles and then I'll do my form after that endorphin serotonin high kind of morphs into my Tai Chi mind. it's just like it's a very, very euphoric feeling. So I was like, man, I'm addicted. This is great. This is the drug I want to be addicted to right here. Because that physical, and again, I I see people gas out in a fight, and before I, I don't ever want to get to that point where I'm gassing out in any physical altercation in real life.
Listen, I've seen people gas out doing tway shot, doing push hands, and they're huffing and puffing like they actually are fighting, and they're not fighting, and they're just their body, they're just any exertion of muscular energy is causing their whole system. Some of that is because they may not know how to breathe properly,
right.
But some of it's the fact that they just have never been put under the duress of an opponent, which makes you breathe differently. I mean, when you're dealing with a person and they got their hands on, they're applying force, it's going to affect all of that. And that's
every bit of it.
Itself, being able to maintain your breathing and your sense of calm and relaxation under a challenge. And so as much as we talk about how Tai Chi helps you relax and manage stress and being relaxed, but then when you get in Tway Shao, you can't relax. It's just interesting how people don't translate that to say, okay, like I'll work with people and I'm just listening to their breathing while we're training.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow, you're like, you have a lot of tension and a lot of energy lost, and your breathing is not in control. And it's just either because one, you may not do any cardio training, or you maybe not have been instructed how to breathe. But right. I think the cardio part is a part of that. Yeah, if you're gonna wheeze out just doing some push hands, then lo and behold, if a dog chases you and you gotta run down a block.
It better be a dang miniature picture.
Stuff like that. I want to be able to run from a dog if I had to,
right?
Or run to help somebody or anything like that. So I still believe, yeah, why not run a little bit? Why not do some things that put my body in and keep those natural things available to me at whatever stage of life I'm at.
Yeah, and I think basic fitness. You don't have to get into weightlifting and be a Lou Frigno or or anything like that. You
got to be the Hulk.
You just need
to be a ham either. So you know what I mean. You have to be the Hulk or the ham. And there's a lot of these guys who are ham sandwiches. You know what I mean. They just and it's sad because it's like you're talking about health and wellness, but you're not. You're talking about it, but you're not really exemplifying it.
Right.
And I think for me that's another important thing is being an example of fitness.
Exactly.
Like my man Steve Contez. Steve.
Yeah.
So I mean, like I love how he trains and what he does, and so actually I'm going to try to go down soon and go hang out with him and do some training because I think he's 63 now, 64, but he looks great. He's a great example of someone who has really combined his strength training and his Tai Chi in a really balanced way.
Right.
And I think we need plenty of examples of that. So, I think that's great. And I think that's something that a lot of people unfortunately get told at some point that, strength training is contrary to Tai Chi success, but it's not.
We have to in some sorts be a walking billboard. We are for what we represent. So
and if you're so interested in wellness and health, then like you said, you don't have to go like power lift, bodybuild. But some of those things help. They not only do they help your Tai Chi, I just think they help your health. I mean, we could talk about men's health and like what happens to men as they age. Right. I joke with my friends. I was like, you might have low T Tai Chi. He's like, what, low T Tai Chi? I'm like, yeah, man, you gotta do some, get some squats, get some blood moving, man, and push yourself a little bit, man. And maybe you can put your body under some healthy stress and keep your hormones flowing good. You know what I mean?
I already know.
I think all that's part of the practice, man. These guys be talking about, we could go into stuff where people talk about Jing and, and they're reading all the Chinese medical texts about saving your Jing and all this other stuff. And it's all good stuff, man. And that's a whole other subject. But the funny thing is that you got to look at some of the other stuff that you look at from a Western medical and see how it ties in. I don't throw any of that stuff away and just say, oh, because it's not Eastern thinking, it's not appropriate to Tai Chi. I think that sometimes the stuff in from a Western practice or Western sports science ties right in. And so like take a look at that and see then how can I marry some of that up with my practice,
Exactly. And I love that because it all does tie in perfectly. And I think it's necessary now. So anyone that's working with me, I'm recommending these things and I'm showing them these things and I'm doing these because I think it's now necessary for you to have basic fitness and wellness. Now, moving forward, because we could talk about that all day.
Yeah.
Are there any sort of challenges that you're facing with your art? Like, do you find yourself trying to struggling with anything or wanting to do something with it?
With Taiji?
Yeah,
No, not really. No, I don't. No, I don't know. Not. I just enjoy my practice, man. You know what I mean? I don't. Yeah.
I love that. I think that's great. Yeah.
I guess I don't even really know how to process that question because I don't. It's an extension of my life, and so it's just like I love practicing. I train. I'm open-minded. I explore what is possible with my practice, and I mix it up with other things that I enjoy as well,
That's exactly what I'm looking for right there, that answer.
Yeah, I mean, Tai Chi is the foundation of what I do. So that's my primary practice. Other things are, I enjoy and I take a look at them and I see some of the universal principles that are connected. And I think the way I look at things, so sometimes when I look at boxing, I'm seeing Tai Chi. When I look at Muay Thai, I'm seeing Tai Chi. When I look at somebody who's doing jujitsu and wrestling, I see those components. Now I don't see the forms necessarily or the postures and all that stuff, but I see some of the principles and the movements and how they play out. And so, no, I don't have any, no, definitely don't have any challenges. I just, I think that everybody can, like in any fitness program, any journey in life, you might hit plateaus, and then you got to reinvest in the basics. You go back to basics, you go back to certain practices that you might not have done. And now when you do them, you gather more from the work that you did when it was a new practice to you. So like I might go back to some basic stuff I was doing in my early stages of my practice. Like say if I go back to Dantian rotation work. And now, because of all the other things I'm aware of that I've integrated, that work is so much more rich to me, I get so much more juice out of it than I did probably that time, because when I first started, it was so brand new to me. So when I'm standing now with a new student and I'm teaching them to stand, the richness of my experience is way more profound than it was maybe 10 years ago. So that's why I always say go back to basics. But no, I think that sometimes people hit plateaus in their work and they have to figure out who to go talk to, who to build with. I'm always open to train with other instructors, you know what I mean? I have mentors and stuff like that, who I go train with. One of my good partners, Marin Spivak up in Boston. He's another chin stylist, but he's not the same lineage as me.
Right.
And people ask, why are you going to study? What is that about? I'm like, yo, man, people have all kinds of skills.
You want to get something from everybody.
It doesn't take away from what you know to build with another practitioner. If you were and I'm a guy who I respect other people's practice. I think what other people do, I see people who, they might not be a fighter. I know that that's not what they do, but I look at them and I see, wow, but what he does there is beneficial, and I could draw from that. So I don't see it like that. I see like, if you may need to reach out to other people at some points in your journey to help you break through plateaus. I think there's never a point that you can't find coaches and mentors and people who can guide you, even if you're accomplished. You know what I mean? You shouldn't, I just don't think of it like that. So I look at different people and I draw from them. And then some people I look at and I just say, you need a mentor and a coach. You need to stop trying to be everybody else's mentor and coach and invest some more time in your practice.
Exactly.
And likewise, I don't want to be one of those people. So I look at myself, where are my blind spots? Where are my shortcomings? And how can I improve? And how can I break through plateaus? Right. So that would be kind of the only challenge I would say, is that after a certain point in the journey, you get so accustomed to how you've been doing things that you may not see some places that you could grow. And so I try to find those. I try not to plateau like that.
I love that. So is there any advice if you would give to anyone that wants to get into this art or martial arts as a whole?
Yeah, I think that know what you want, what type of art you would like to practice, and really take the time, like we talked about earlier. There's so many people now who put material out that can be confusing because it can be a lot of smoke and mirrors sometimes with stuff, but you got to do the research, find out maybe like, what their background is, what their experience is, or do you connect with their message, like the way that they teach? If you have that, I mean, some people don't have the accessibility to kind of meet a lot of different teachers. So if you don't have that accessibility and you can't, then start with a program that matches where you're at, and then continually keep looking. I think the martial arts is a journey. It's like, we're not in the area where you're going to be learning martial arts because you're going to go out in the battlefield. That's not the reality. I mean, you may need to defend yourself, but most people aren't entering the art for that. And so you want to find a practice that kind of is well-rounded for addressing a few different aspects of your development. And of course, practical use of the art, to me, is very important. So I think you should look for that in an instructor, but you should know why you want to train, and then you should just really commit to it and let it really become a part of your life. I think a lot of people think that going to class and training with your instructor a couple times a week is learning martial arts.
Right.
And I don't think that. I think that going to class and spending a couple hours, the teacher is an opportunity to be corrected, and the other work you do outside, just like in any program, if you are in a university or you're going for a PhD, or you got to do a lot of outside study.
Homework.
And I think that's what the art is about. It's like, if you want to really get into any practice, you got to really try to integrate it into your life. And so I would say that to people, if you really want to succeed in the practices and study the martial arts, know why you want to get involved, what your primary objectives are, and then find teachers and arts that kind of, resonate with you, and then really dedicate yourself so that you can really explore the art. If you don't put enough time in, you just kind of don't get enough information back from your body and from the practice to really know what is happening. I think that I look at some of my classmates who I've trained with in Tai Chi, and we started around the same time, but they didn't put the time in. And then later when they see me, they're like, wow, man, and we touch and we do stuff, they're blown away, but it's just they quit too soon.
Right.
Because they just didn't know that if they had kept at it, they would really get there. Like they lost the fire. And I think that's in fitness programs and wellness programs, everything. It's like people start, they see some place they want to get to, but then they kind of like fizzle out because either the results aren't coming quick enough, or it's demanding more than they thought it would. But I would just encourage people to stick with it and really persevere and let it unfold.
I love that. And then my last question, which I have not asked before anyone, what advice would you give to instructors that are taking on just new students or even advanced students or whatever? What is some good advice that you think we should stick to?
I think it goes back to being open-minded and being open to understanding what your strengths are as an instructor, like being honest with yourself, being clear about what you can teach, what you can't teach, or that you're on the journey as well. Like where I'm at now with my martial experience and training, I was teaching, but there weren't some certain things I hadn't developed yet myself. Now my student might have been, many years behind me, but I didn't give off the idea that I was some teacher who could do all this. I just recognized, hey, I'm teaching you this part of the practice. This is what I understand. I didn't try to, so I think being honest with where you're at. I think that's important for integrity of yourself and for the art, so that your students aren't misguided and creating some power dynamic with you that's kind of strange, where you're like some all-knowing person. No, you're a real person. You don't know everything. You haven't explored everything. You may be very good in a particular aspect of it, and that's what you're sharing. And that doesn't mean you're not still evolving as an instructor and gaining new insights. So I think that's important for instructors to really be honest with themselves and then really work on becoming a better instructor. I think that's something I'm trying to do, is like, how do I teach different people? Like everybody's not the same. Everybody doesn't respond to my teaching. Sometimes I have students in my class and they'll say it to one of my students in a better way than evidently I did. And that student's like, and I look back and I say, well, that student is working through that process now. So it's real tangible to them.
It's real to them.
Right? Yeah, that was 10 years for me. So I remember the lesson, but it's not as tangible to me because I'm not still trying to work through like opening up my hip or opening up, it's all that stuff is not in my mind because it's kind of integrated into my body. And so I think that you got to like draw on all types of resources to stay aware of where your students are at in their journey, whether that be just their other classmates who are still learning something and that might be more fresh to them, or like listening to other people online and seeing, oh, this is what new people are thinking about, and how do I tap into that? How do I touch them? And
Right.
so I think it's really like never stopping the process of learning is important for instructors. And that means learning how to teach, learning what you should be doing, and like I said earlier about, and also working through your own plateaus, and then being honest about what you're capable of teaching, and then also what the art does. You know, I've heard teachers make up stories about things that weren't real to sell the idea to a student about what their Sifu did or what their teacher did, and he took on 5 people and did this, that, and other, and he bounced them, and it's just like, oh, that's not necessary. You know, just really give them the art, really like nurture their growth. And I think that's what being an instructor is about, is nurturing other people's growth. Just like a teacher, if you really had a strong relationship with mentors and teachers, they nurtured you. I think this is a challenge with people who haven't had those instructors though. Like when you go to a certification course and you just learn in a short amount of time Tai Chi basics, you don't have the nurturing relationship with a teacher.
Right.
And so maybe it's more difficult to give that to a student. So that's why I think even mentoring still, even if you've had that, is important, because when you put yourself in the place of being a student, it helps you be a better teacher.
Exactly.
I think all those things kind of work together.
Beautiful. William, I got one more thing to say to you, man.
What's that, man?
I challenge you.
I don't know. We already knew that was coming, man. I already knew that was coming. Hey, when I told some of my guys, no. When I told some of my guys, no, wait a minute. Listen, when I told some of my guys that I was doing a podcast with you, they're like, oh, you know he's gonna challenge you. I said, no, it's all good, man. We've already had that conversation. I remember one time you talked to me about this a while back, and I said, with the time will come when we will get together and train and touch, and we'll get the chance to share each other's practice. So
yeah, I truly believe that day will come.
Oh yeah,
I think we'll do great. I think we'll have a good time. So
I know we'll have a good time, man.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Hey man,
it's funny though. You might not notice, but you were back in the day when you had your mohawk and you were at a competition in Florida, and I was competing. I think I was competing in a grappling competition. Steve Contest's grappling competition. I competed in that competition. It was an open competition for anybody, no matter your grappling background or whatever. And you were doing push hands there. And our paths crossed, and I was trying to get at you because I saw you demonstrating some stuff. I was like, yo, I want to push with this guy. And my son was there. My son, he fought. And I said, that guy right there, he's got some skill, man. You need to watch him. And my son was like, yeah, let's get at him. Let's get it. I was like, no, not really. I said, he's like, no, he don't spar. I said, no, I don't know if he spars, but he's doing push hands right now. He said, I want to push with him. I said, the time will come, man. So, you know, your name is floated around the Miller household a few times. So the time will come, you know what I mean?
Good, full circle, man. We're going to get it in.
The time will come, you know, we'll link it, we'll make it happen.
Yes, sir. I believe in that. Well, thank you, William. I appreciate you, brother. And
man, my pleasure, man. And good luck with everything you're doing.
Yes.
And likewise, I've been impressed with your work and what you're doing. So and that's why I hit you up to support, because I think that's important, man. That we build each other up. I think there's enough people, you know, who don't really support and show love to each other in the art. And I think that's another. I mean, if we don't agree, we can critique each other. But at the same time, when you see people doing good stuff, let them know. And so I love what you're doing, man. Keep it up.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And if you ever have any constructive criticism, throw it my way.
You know I don't hold back.
I know you don't hold back at all.